And there's more to come as well, because we're now going to bring to the podium Jason Lerner, who is the Medical Director, Research and Development for Biohaven, about another upcoming interesting project. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you for inviting me to come speak, and really an introduction to Biohaven. We're the new kids on the block. So we're just starting, but we think we've got some really exciting things for the future. Let's see. And so you can sit back for a little bit. There's not going to be a lot of technical jargon. We don't have a study quite yet that we can share with everyone. So this is more of an introduction. So to tell you about myself, so I'm a pediatric epileptologist. Always wanted to go into neurology from undergraduate and even high school. So went to medical school and then started pediatrics residency initially because I really enjoyed working with children in pediatrics. And the very end of medical school, I went on a triple blind date in New York City and met Kelly, my wife, and we hit it off right away. Well, if she were here, she would say it was love at first sight, but we hit off right away, and during our conversation, she mentioned that she had epilepsy, and she was diagnosed when she was around the age of 9, after being misdiagnosed, actually not even acknowledged for about 9 months that she was having seizures, and no one was acknowledging it. She finally got to a neurologist who then put her on the wrong medication for what she had. And then that started a long trail of difficult problems with different medications, side effects, and then all the comorbidities associated, so anxiety, depression. So when we first met, she wasn't under complete control, but we were able to get a second opinion by Dr. Davinsky, who I believe is going to be speaking later today. And he was able to find the right cocktail of medications, and she's done really well. After that, I finished my child neurology residency at Albert Einstein in the Bronx. We went out to Los Angeles, and I finished a pediatric epilepsy fellowship there. And while in Los Angeles, we did a lot of work with the Epilepsy Foundation. Kelly really has done a lot of work with teens. While in New York, she ran a teen group with a bunch of girls, young girls who had epilepsy. And I got the opportunity to listen to their discussions and hear about their struggles and having seizures in school and incontinence and bullying and lots of things like that. And again, the depression and anxiety that went along with it. We continued to do things like that in Los Angeles, working with the Epilepsy Foundation. So about 6 months ago, and then I was at UCLA for 16 years on faculty. About 6 months ago, I was approached by a friend to do an evaluation of a upcoming possible medication for Biohaven, and this is the BHV 7000. And I realized that it was a potassium channel modulator, and that was really exciting because as a clinician, I'd used the former potassium channel modulator a fair amount. And if you talk to clinicians, you talk about different medications, you're going to have a handful of patients that it does well on, and that did. And then you have a handful of patients that it didn't do well on. And a lot of that's due to side effects and things like sedation and urinary retention, or issues that may not be able to push the medication as high as you want to get efficacy because of that. So unfortunately, because of some issues and some discoloration of the skin and the retina, it was pulled from the market. And it was heartbreaking to bring those patients in that were doing well on it and say, you know what, sorry, we don't have the medication for you anymore, and we have to put you on something else that's maybe less desirable. So the idea to bring a new potassium channel modulator to patients was just so exciting that when they called me 6 months later and said, we're purchasing it, we want you to come in and run the epilepsy program, I couldn't pass it up. So enough about me. Let me give you a little bit of information about Biohaven. So Biohaven's story is basically a David versus Goliath history. About 2017, Goliath, which is a big pharmaceutical company, started a drug trial on a CGRP migraine medication. And David, Biohaven, a small biotech company, started their own study for their own CGRP medication. And so starting a year behind, 2.5 years later, Nurtec was approved only two months after Goliath's medication was approved. Nurtec went on to be the #1 treatment for migraine in the CGRP landscape. And it has been over for the last year. So the other thing that you may know or have heard about Biohaven is that we were bought by Pfizer, but that's not exactly what happened. Pfizer really bought the migraine arm of Biohaven. And so this is Vlad Kormick. He was on the Mad Money show and talking about Biohaven pivoting. And we had been a migraine company, and now we're pivoting to an epilepsy company. And we feel that we've got a great compound that we'll tell you a little bit about. So the BHV 7000 was actually created with KCNQ2 in mind and KCNQ2 DEE in mind. It's stable, and so it doesn't form what are called dimers that could cause this discoloration in the skin. It's selective, so it focuses on the potassium channel alone. And because of that, it doesn't impact GABA, which impacting GABA can cause adverse effects like sedation. So it should be well tolerated. And it's consistent. What I mean by consistent is this is some of the early preclinical work we've done, and this is in vitro. And here's let's see the laser. So we've heard about this already. I think Dr. George mentioned this. The current density, the potassium current density. Here's just a simplistic example of the potassium channel with potassium ions going through, normal channel going through, mutated channel. You're not able to get that same current density. And what we found is that these are 4 of the most common mutations to KCNQ2. When adding the BHV 7000, we were able to bring the current density back to normal in all of them. And so what we feel is that we have a compound that could be a targeted treatment. And it's possible that it actually could be disease modifying if it's able to fix that potassium channel. We know that time is brain, like we talk about with stroke. And so we want to get the treatment to patients as early as possible. And our goal is right after diagnosis is to start treating. We know there are other options. We know that the sodium channel blockers are helpful for KCNQ2 DEE for the seizures. However, how much they help development, it's really not clear. And so there's a chance that if we're able to fix that potassium channel problem early enough that we may be able to help that epileptic encephalopathy part of the DEE. And restoration of current, which we mentioned before. And so we're right now developing studies, and hopefully we'll have a timeline out within the next year of what exactly we're planning on doing and and who we're doing it with. We're looking out for everyone, and I understand and we realize that there are patients with KCNQ DEE who are older, may still have seizures, and may have other comorbidities that we've heard about a lot today. And we're looking at ways that we can work with that population as well, and possibly run a study with that population as well. So we'd be interested to hear if anyone has any ideas or thoughts about that. We're fortunate to partner with people and groups like KCNQ2 Cure, which has put on an amazing summit. And we're working with some of the top specialists, top epileptologists in the world, from some of the top epilepsy centers. We also understand that in DEE in general and KCNQ2 DEE, development is not. You can't measure development in miles, and you have to measure development in inch. And so this InchStone project is really looking at finding a way to be able to really monitor the development of patients, but not with some of the bigger scales that we use that are really based off of what normal development should be, And that just doesn't work for the population. So we're working with neuropsychologists and the Interstone Project and seeing how we can do that and come up with that. And then you heard from Invite a Citizen, natural history study. We're partnering with them and Beacon Biosignals, who's here as well. Jake, the CEO, is here with us. And what we really want to do is look at the natural history that you just saw, you just heard about, but look at it with the EEG. And we really want to see how the evolution of the EEG goes over time and see if we can find a way to see, is there something in the EEG using AI that we can tell, maybe what medication is going to work, or maybe what side effects are more likely, or comorbidities. So that was just a kind of a quick introduction to Biohaven. For more information, please visit our website. Welcome to shoot me an email if you have any questions. Like I said, really hoping that we're going to have some information out soon about timelines and more information about upcoming studies. Thank you.
Pausing for a moment before you leave, Jason. Anyone have any questions? Claire, is there anything from online? All right. Well, thank you so much, Jason. Really appreciate it. It's exciting to see more things coming into the pipeline.